should have never stayed so late in town. The road home was long, and tonight the darkness felt alive. 15 kilometers. That's the distance from town to my village. Usually I'd make it back before nightfall, but today time slipped away. The rain made the road disappear. I could barely see past my own hand. Then I heard it, a voice behind me, familiar, comforting. Babuji, don't stop. Just walk, and don't turn back. It was Shankar, a farmer I had helped once. He owed me a debt too big to forget. But I wasn't thinking about that. I was just relieved to have a companion in the dark. He held the lantern behind me, casting my shadow long and thin. Don't look back, he said. I didn't question it. We talked instead, about his daughter's wedding, about the harvest. His voice was steady, too steady. Suddenly he stopped. I can't go any further, he said. I have somewhere else to be. I turned to thank him, but all of a sudden it feels as if he vanished in thin air. He was no way to be found. I was filled with somewhat fear and cold from my head to toe. I could barely explain or tell what just happened, for some time. Then I walked into the village and saw a gathering, people whispering. I asked what was wrong. My body turned to ice this time when I was told Shankar had died early that morning. I could barely move my feet. Then I started wondering and asking myself, if Shankar was dead, who had walked with me? Not after some months later, that I later discovered Shankar had returned from death to acknowledge his debt and provide help to me when I needed it. Lannisters never keep a debt, they say. Well, I never believed it until that day. I was in my early 20s when I unknowingly stood face to face with death and walked away. But someone else wasn't so lucky. On that very day, my date and I decided to go to the Sail Inn in West Sacramento to play pool, a place we'd had visited a few times before. The bartender was this stunning woman, warm, engaging, always with a smile. I remember thinking she made the place feel safe. But that night was different. We walked in, and the first thing I noticed was a couple playing pool, a man and a woman. My date grabbed drinks while I stood watching their game. Then the man turned to me and started talking. He was friendly, too friendly, a little too interested in me. When my date returned, the man invited us to play a game with them. I should have noticed it then, how his female companion never said a word. But I didn't. We started playing. At first, the conversation seemed normal, but then he started asking me things. Personal things. Where do you live? How long have you two been dating? Do you live together? His eyes darted between me and his silent partner. She still hadn't spoken. Something inside me started screaming, a deep, primal instinct. Then he asked us to leave with them, said they knew a cool bar down the street. My stomach twisted. I hesitated. Then he asked again. My mouth moved before I could think. No thanks, we have dinner plans. In the actual sense, we didn't. But my date didn't argue. He saw something in my face. We grabbed our jackets and bolted. The second we stepped outside, my skin crawled. The hair on my neck stood up. Something was very, very wrong. Back in my truck, my date asked what was wrong. I told him I had the worst feeling about those people. He shrugged it off. Thought I was being paranoid. I almost believed him. Until I opened the newspaper a few days later. It was her, the bartender, kidnapped, raped, murdered. That same night. I felt sick, but I told myself it was just a horrible coincidence. Until a month later. There they were, the same couple from the bar. They weren't just killers, they were serial killers. They preyed on couples, invited them out, got them into their van, and we were supposed to be next. My stomach turned. We had barely escaped, and because we said no, someone else took our place. I have lived with that guilt my entire life, knowing that one choice, one gut instinct saved me, and doomed someone else. I know it wasn't my fault, but sometimes in the dead of night, I still wonder, what if I had said yes? Would I be nothing more than another headline? Or would someone else be telling the story instead?